Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering creativity. I'm Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is José Luis Gomez, who serves as the music director of the Tucson Symphony Orchestra. José Luis, welcome to the show.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you for having me here. Looking forward.
So I'm so excited to have you on, and Tucson Symphony is not only a great creative partner here on the show, but also partner with Sphinx and the SOPA and NAS and all that. So there's so much extraordinary work you're doing there. And one of the things that I thought would be great, and I think our audience would love, is the perspective of the music director, right? Who's literally kind of architecting not just the music, but the role of the orchestra in a community. And wondering if you could kind of just share with us, how do you view that? How do you view the role of the Tucson Symphony in your communities? And then are there things that you're doing to go about connecting to the various constituencies that comprise your community?
Yeah, certainly. My role as a music director obviously uh, demands a certain amount of responsibility when it comes to planning, when it comes to, having ideas. But I think, what is going on here in Tucson particularly is that we have made a group effort to be on the same page. And so whatever initiative that I have is also the initiative that other people in the team has, including the whole group of the orchestra, including members of the board. So it's incredibly interesting to see that we have taken the matter of being an orchestra of the Tucson community as one of the, well, as the only, breathing element in our speech, in our actions, in our future plans. So I serve to facilitate many of those things, and many of those things are already projects that started, gladly when I started my tenure in 2017, but also new things that I think we have, developed because of the many different things that have changed in our society in recent times. The pandemic and all the events that happened during the pandemic made the Tucson Symphony to rethink themselves as real advocates, not only for the art, but for the people of Tucson. So we want the orchestra to feel like Tucson, to look like Tucson, to sound like Tucson. And Tucson is great. It's as Vienna and Berlin and Washington and Chicago are great cities, Tucson is a great city. And it's a great city because it has an incredible, huge amount of diversity, of colors, of shapes and flavors. So if we only stay in one flavor on one side as a symphony orchestra and the conception of a symphony orchestra, then we are limiting ourselves to the way our Tucson city looks like. So it's in the programming, it's in the ideas, it's in how the people that we collaborate with. We want to include, of course, the always our faithful patrons and the people who has been part of the growth of the orchestra throughout the years. And this is a 94 plus, orchestra, has existed many times. Imagine an orchestra in the middle of the desert. Why? So there are people who are passionate about a symphony orchestra, but also it's about creating a communication with people who are also important part of the environment of a city. So one example is the very strong the strong collaboration we have with the Mexican consulate. Tucson is a southern state that is, only 2 hours away from the Mexican border, and more than 40% of the population is Hispanic. So there are many ways to connect with the Hispanic community, but the Mexican consulate here in Tucson is very important. So this is a collaboration that we have that is very strong, but also many other leaders of different other communities are now being invited to to express their wish. It's not only us saying, "Hey, we want to participate." No, it's saying, "Hey, what do you want us to do for you? What is it that the Tucson Symphony can serve to your community?" And those initiatives are blossoming, and it's very exciting. It's a very exciting time.
That's awesome and that's amazing, and especially I loved hearing about those types of partnerships, like with the consulate, which I'm sure not only are great in terms of various inroads, but also kind of helps to just kind of inform and influence some of the decisions you might be making about all of these aspects for the orchestra. So one thing I was wondering, and I'm sure there are probably some people in our audience who think with their orchestra and thinking about connecting with their community. You referenced, programming, and so I was curious: are there ways that you approach that as you curate repertoire and you're thinking about that? And is there either a process you use or any suggestions you have for anyone representing orchestras who's watching about things that you might do that they might consider in terms of connecting with their own communities as it relates to their repertoire?
Yeah, and a great collaboration that we are strengthened is collaboration with the American Composers Orchestra, and they're a great partner when it comes to developing new ideas, and because they are not only very well versed in contemporary music and new creators, but also they want to help organizations to find their own identity. And I think since the first collaboration we had, which was it's called Earshot, is a program in which you invite young composers, and so they kind of develop their work. And one of the things that they wanted to also explore is something that is relevant for the Southern Arizona communities. And one of the things that we talked about is Native American composers. So that's why we just recently did another part of the earshot called Collaboratory, which was led by Raven Chacon, the Pulitzer Prize composer, and that we are actually commissioning together with the Dallas Symphony with a new symphonic work. Well, he was part of these collaboratory earshot readings, in which we had other three Native American composers that were part of his students, but also other composers that were researched by the American Composers Orchestra. So this is a great opportunity also to look at new creations, but also creations of people who haven't had the opportunity because of the structure of this so-called symphony orchestra, that seems like it didn't include those voices, but those voices are there and they have to be included. So the programming goes through collaborations also with these organizations. We have an artistic advisory committee from the musicians also that propose many things, and we listen to everybody who has new ideas, and everybody in the business also who is doing things here and there. I mean, I will remember so clearly when we co-commissioned the Arturo Marquez. He's a Sonoran composer, from Mexico, very well known, and we co-commissioned a trumpet concerto with a fellow Venezuelan trumpet player, Pacho Flores, and it was incredible to see that it didn't take any effort for Arturo to come to Tucson. He was excited to come to Tucson for the U.S. premiere, but also because he said most of my family are here. So you had in the audience not only the expectation of all the Latin American community and the Hispanic community, but also his family. So it becomes an incredible, humbling event in which you have people who are so relevant in our business, but also there are human beings that are surrounded by family, by roots. And this is something that sometimes we forget a little bit in our business or in our music business. If we even call it business, is kind of weird. In our thing, this is the way of life. A way of life has to have all those elements of life: family and roots and feelings and history and tradition that has to be always respected.
I love that, and I love especially just kind of the global sense that you have of this work that we do and the art making. Curious, kind of just going off of that too, just in terms of the role of the music director, right? Being on the podium, that a lot of times, and people outside our field and stuff, they're like, oh, okay, so what's a conductor doing, and all of these things. I was wondering if, especially for our audience, in that role as the music director, is there any kind of ethos or approach that you bring that you're like, when I come to my work, this is most important? Or does it relate to what you were just sharing about this role that, what we do is like a family? Or just wondering any kind of approaches that you have as it relates to this work that you might be able to share.
Sure. Well, I can think of, each one of us are individuals that are are very peculiar by ourselves. We have things that we are unique. And I think when it comes to music making, at least from my side, if I want to detach myself from who I am, from a person that was born in Venezuela, from a Spanish father that grew up in Venezuela and that now lives in Spain, but works in America and has been in many parts of the world. If I forget who I am, and I want to play Beethoven, Brahms, or Florence Price only, trying to emulate what they are, I'm losing my authenticity. So what I bring as a music director, as a conductor, is also José Luis Gomez. I try, which is one of the most difficult things, because who I am, I mean, who are we? It's like, and when it comes to music making, I try to, to be honest with myself and try to help that language that I'm dealing with my hands, to also resonate together with who I am, my experiences, and the orchestra that I'm working with, and the community that I'm serving to. So it's really funny, because when it comes to any repertoire, again, I feel like sometimes things that are very obvious, when I need to address an audience in Spanish, all of a sudden, not only that I feel more comfortable because that's my native language, but also the sound of my voice, the sound of the things that I say shape differently. So when I speak English, I want that to be part of my speech. And when I speak with my hands with the music, I want my heritage to be present. So I think in the overall role as a music director and as a conductor, when I approach many of these projects or many of these ideas, and when we expand our repertoire, I want the orchestra to understand also that my musical ideas come from different backgrounds, but also come from me, Jose Luis, the Venezuelan boy that heard Shostakovich and Tchaikovsky, but also listened to traditional music, joropos and valses and stuff like that. And it's not that Beethoven's gonna sound like a Venezuelan waltz, but why try to avoid who you are? So that's probably one of the things that, I don't know if it answers your questions a little bit, but it's
Oh,
something that's in my head all the time.
I completely, and I think that spoke so strongly to so many in our audience who think about that and think about especially bringing themselves into the work that they do. So this is amazing. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time, but I always like to ask of all my guests, this work, right? Obviously, it's so fulfilling. I can just see and feel the joy that you have for the work that you do. But there's, of course, has to be tough days, or days where it seems like there's a challenge that can't be overcome. Just wondering, as a leader, do you have any approach on the toughest of days that helps you get through them?
I would say if you're together on the same page, I think the successes are our successes, but also when something is a little bit challenging, is our challenge. If you use the word our all the time, then you succeed, because you don't point fingers, you don't say this doesn't work because you didn't do that. No, we need to work together to overcome these things. So I feel like maybe that symphony orchestra is the best example, of a community that sometimes even without talking, we overcome challenges. And I think that would be my thought about that. Those days I think of more of an hour than I,
Jose Luis
or we.
Gomez. Yes, Jose Luis Gomez, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything that you do for your communities, for our community overall, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Aaron. A pleasure.